Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My husband said he was flying to Maui with the woman he truly loves, leaving me stranded in a snowy mountain cabin with barely 2 weeks of supplies and no phone, insisting I would manage on my own. As his car disappeared down the road, I simply smiled. Damon had no idea what waited for him at the airport. "You will survive. You always do. That is your problem." Damon said it like an insult, as if my ability to endure made me disposable, as if resilience was weakness instead of strength. I was lying in my grandmother's cabin 2 days after emergency surgery, watching through a frost-clouded window while my husband threw his suitcase into my Jeep. His mistress, Jasmine, 26, toned, glowing with the confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences, was already in the passenger seat. They were going to Maui. 7 days in an overwater bungalow. $42,000 of our joint savings funding their romantic escape. Meanwhile, I was stranded here. No cell phone, no transportation, no way to call for help if complications set in. The surgeon had been explicit. I was vulnerable. I needed constant monitoring. Infection, hemorrhaging, a dozen things could go wrong. Damon knew that. He had been there when the doctor explained it. Phone in hand, barely listening. Dr. Angela Morton, tall with gray-streaked hair and tired eyes, had stood at the foot of my hospital bed. "Complete bed rest for 2 weeks minimum," she said, directing her words at me but looking right at Damon. "No stairs, no lifting anything heavier than a water bottle. You will need someone watching for fever, excessive bleeding, signs of infection. You will be extremely vulnerable during recovery." Vulnerable. Damon had looked up at that word and smiled. I should have recognized that smile for what it was, not relief that I survived, but calculation. Opportunity. At the time I had been too drugged, too exhausted, too focused on the searing pain across my abdomen to understand. Now, standing at the cabin window, one hand pressed over my surgical incision, the other braced against the wall, I understood exactly what he had done. This morning Damon brought lukewarm oatmeal and my pain medication, moving around the small bedroom with a careful efficiency that felt rehearsed. Then he did something that made my stomach drop. He picked up my phone from the nightstand and slipped it into his pocket with a smooth, practiced motion. "You need complete rest," he said, smiling. "Doctor's orders. No work stress, no social media. I am doing you a favor, Alicia." The pain had been too sharp for me to argue. I watched him disappear down the hallway, heard him stacking wood and sorting canned food, as if he were preparing me for a snowstorm instead of abandoning me. When he came back, he delivered his announcement like a calendar update. "I am flying to Maui," he said. "With Jasmine. You remember her, right? My personal trainer." Of course I remembered her. I had met Jasmine twice. Once at the gym, when I picked Damon up. She had barely looked at me, focused entirely on him, talking about core engagement and maximizing his potential. The second time was at a charity gala. She had looked right through me like I was part of the decor. "I am taking the joint savings," Damon continued, words tumbling faster. "All 42,000. Already transferred it this morning while you were sleeping. Turns out Jasmine, and I do not need a down payment on a bigger place. We need a vacation. We need to remember what it feels like to be young and happy." He pulled the apartment keys from his pocket, the keys on the silver keyring I had given him on our wedding day, and dropped them on the wooden floor. The sound was small but final, like a bone snapping. "Change the locks, too. Your things are in storage off Route 38, Unit 519. Paid for 1 month. After that, they auction it. So you might want to prioritize getting back to civilization." I tried to stand. Pain tore through me and folded me back onto the bed. I pressed both hands over the incision, feeling heat under the dressing. Rage or inflammation, I could not tell. "Why?" I whispered. Damon actually paused to consider it, tilting his head as if I were an interesting puzzle. "Because I want more," he said. "Because you are 39 and you let yourself go. Because Jasmine makes me feel alive in a way you have not in years. Because the opportunity presented itself, your surgery, this isolated cabin, the timing, and I am smart enough to take it." That was when he said it. "You will survive. You always do. That is your superpower, Alicia. You adapt. You will figure it out." He said survivor, like it was my fatal flaw instead of my strength. Then he turned and walked out. Now, through frost-clouded glass, I watched him dump his suitcase into my Grand Cherokee. The one I bought with inheritance money from my grandmother, the one I chose for mountain driving and independence. Jasmine laughed at something on her phone, radiant, carefree. Damon started the engine, then rolled the window down one last time. "Oh, and Alicia," he called. "Just making sure you heard me. You definitely cannot get into the apartment. Would not want you wasting energy trying when you finally make it back to town." He grinned. Actually grinned. Then he drove away, the Jeep disappearing into the tree line. I watched until the taillights vanished and the tire tracks began to blur under fresh snow. My legs were shaking. The 15 feet from bed to window had taken everything I had. Every breath was agony. I should have been in a hospital. Instead, my husband had left me here to either survive or die quietly. But I was not crying. I was not collapsing. I was smiling because he had made a catastrophic mistake. He thought I was isolated. He thought I was helpless. He had forgotten where he left me. He had forgotten who raised me. This was my grandmother Eloise's cabin. She had left it to me 3 years ago when she died. It had been her refuge after my grandfather's long, cruel marriage, a place where she relearned who she was without a man defining her. She spent my childhood summers teaching me how to split wood, how to read the sky for weather, how to start a fire with damp kindling, how to be alone without being lonely. "You are stronger than you know, Alicia," Grandma Eloise told me the last summer I visited. We sat on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the ridge. Life is going to test that strength someday. When it does, remember where you come from. At the time, I thought she was just being sentimental. Now I understood she was warning me. She met Damon only once, at our wedding. I had watched her watch him all night, her expression unreadable. Later, she pulled me aside. "Trust your instincts," she whispered, squeezing my hands. "Always." I laughed it off, too in love to hear the warning. She had seen something in him I would not admit to myself. I turned from the window and forced myself toward the kitchen. Every step was a negotiation with pain. The cabin looked exactly like she left it. Wood stove, handmade quilts, modest furniture. On the bedroom wall, half hidden in the morning light, hung one of her cross-stitches. "A woman who knows her worth does not measure herself by a man's opinion." I let the words settle into me like a spine. Then I saw it, mounted on the wall beside the old refrigerator, exactly where my brother Daryl installed it 3 years ago, was the satellite phone. Heavy, ugly, wired straight into the sky. Damon had never considered it worth his attention. To him it was an unnecessary expense in a place that barely had proper electricity. I lifted the receiver. A clear, steady dial tone hummed in my ear. Damon had planned meticulously, but he had not planned around Daryl. He had not planned around me. I dialed my brother's number from memory. The call connected on the 4th ring. "Alicia." Daryl's voice was sharp with alarm. "Where are you?" "I have been calling your cell for 2 days. It goes straight to voicemail." I swallowed, felt my muscles tremble, but my voice came out calm. "At Grandma's cabin," I said. "Post-surgery. Damon left. I need you to do something for me, and I need you at your computer." Silence. Then Daryl's tone changed, hardening. "Tell me what happened." So I did. I told him about the emergency hysterectomy after I hemorrhaged at home. About Damon scrolling his phone while Dr. Morton explained how vulnerable I would be. About Damon taking my phone, transferring our savings, changing the locks, loading up my Jeep, and driving away with Jasmine to Maui. "He left you there, 2 days after surgery, with no phone and no way to get to a hospital?" Daryl's voice shook with anger. "That is not just cruel. That is dangerous. That is why I need you to make a call," I said. "First, contact airport security at JFK. There is a Maui flight tonight. Report 2 passengers traveling with stolen funds and unauthorized use of a joint account." I could hear his laptop opening, keys clacking. "All right," he said. "That will flag their tickets. What else?" I let myself exhale. "Remember the investigator I hired 2 months ago? After Damon told me I was crazy for worrying about Jasmine?" Daryl grunted. "Tamara Fields, former NYPD. You told me she was thorough." "She found everything," I said. 14 hotel visits at the same luxury hotel. Messages where Damon calls me the obstacle, and Jasmine calls me the old wife. And the money, over $60,000 moved from our joint savings into a private account in his name. Daryl cursed under his breath. 3 weeks ago, I continued, he left a Maui reservation open on his laptop. 2 tickets. 7 nights. That is how I knew when they were going. I called the resort the next day and added you as a 3rd guest. They confirmed the change. I sent the confirmation to your old email account. The one you only check twice a year. Your name is on that reservation, Daryl. You have as much right to that bungalow as they do. He laughed, sharp and fierce. You want me to crash their vacation? I want you to deliver Tamara's file, I said. All of it, printed, handed directly to Damon and Jasmine on the deck of that bungalow. I want them to read, with the ocean behind them, exactly what they have done. Consider it done, he said. I can be there 12 hours before them. One more thing, I said. When you call TSA, tell them to check Damon's name for an incoming warrant. Daryl went quiet. Is there a warrant? Not yet, I said. But there will be by the time their IDs hit the scanner. I have been working with an attorney. Her name is Regina Cole. She specializes in financial abuse. All she needed was proof Damon intended to leave me medically vulnerable and cut off from resources. He just gave it to her. Regina already had Tamara's report. She already had copies of Damon's messages about timing his escape to my surgery. This morning, while he thought I was knocked out on pain medication, I emailed Regina from the old laptop hidden under the bed, my freelance computer with its own hotspot. She filed for an emergency protective order, an asset freeze, and an arrest warrant for financial abuse and domestic violence through abandonment. The judge signed at noon. The warrant would hit federal systems by evening. You are brilliant, Daryl said quietly. You know that. I leaned against the counter, suddenly dizzy. I am tired, I said. But I am not broken. No, he agreed. You definitely are not broken. I will make the calls. Stay by that stove. Keep the fire going. I am coming as soon as I can. When I hung up, my hands were shaking, but for the first time since the surgery, the shaking came from adrenaline instead of fear. Damon thought survivor meant I would endure anything without fighting back. He was about to learn what survival really looked like. The wood stove had burned low while I talked. I fed in 2 logs from the stack Damon, ironically, had prepared. Flames caught quickly. Warmth began to seep into the cabin. 6 hours until the warrant went live. Damon and Jasmine would be driving toward JFK by now. He would be relaxed, confident, sure he had planned for everything. Pain dragged me back toward the bedroom. I lay down carefully, pulling my grandmother's quilt over my body. On the nightstand sat Grandma Eloise's worn leather journal. I had found it a year after she died, read it once, then tucked it away. Now I opened it again. Her neat handwriting slid across the pages. Entries from decades earlier. Notes about my grandfather's controlling behavior. His affairs. His habit of making her feel crazy for noticing what he was actually doing. I wasted 30 years trying to change a man who did not want to change, she wrote. I should have spent that time becoming who I was meant to be. Near the end, I found a more recent entry. Alicia brought that man she is going to marry, it read. Damon. I watched the way he talks over her. The way he dismisses her when she speaks. The way he checks his phone while she is telling a story. I see the pattern. I wanted to grab her and say, run. Instead, I am leaving her this cabin. She has my spine, even if she does not know it yet. She will need it. I pressed the journal to my chest and let tears come for a moment, hot and sharp. Then I wiped them away. Crying would not change what Damon had done. Preparation already had. Night settled in. Wind rattled the cabin. Pain meds dulled the worst of the incision, but fever flushed my skin. Sometime after midnight, I started to shiver. Dr. Morton's warning echoed in my head. Fever after abdominal surgery could mean infection, could become sepsis. Damon had left me alone knowing this. He had done the math and decided my risk was acceptable. I checked the wound in the bathroom mirror. Angry red, swollen, but not oozing. I changed the dressing with clumsy hands, swallowed more ibuprofen, and forced myself to drink water. Survival required small, unglamorous choices. Stay warm. Stay hydrated. Stay alert. The wall clock ticked toward 9 at night. I pictured Damon and Jasmine standing in the security line at JFK, passports in hand, designer luggage at their feet. I imagined the beep when Damon's ID hit the scanner, the way the security agent's expression would change when the system flagged his name. At 9:17 p.m., the satellite phone rang. I nearly tore it off the wall. Daryl, they pulled them, he said, breathless with excitement. TSA flagged the card and the warrant at the checkpoint. 2 agents escorted Damon and Jasmine to a private room. Homeland Security came in. They are not going anywhere. My knees buckled and I slid into the kitchen chair. Tell me. He tried to act outraged, Daryl said. There must be some mistake. This is my money, my trip. Then they showed him the warrant. Fraud. Financial abuse. Domestic violence through abandonment. They separated him from Jasmine. She started crying. He kept talking. They did not listen. Are they arresting him? I asked. Yes, Daryl said. He is in federal custody. Jasmine too, though her lawyer is already whispering about cooperation. The asset freeze is in effect. Everything with his name on it is locked. He is not stepping on any beach for a long time. I let out a slow breath. Damon had gambled everything on the belief that I would endure quietly. Instead, he was the one trapped under bright airport lights, answering questions he never thought he would have to answer. Thank you, I said. The words felt small compared to what Daryl had done. That is what family is for, he replied. Now promise me you will call for help if the fever gets worse. It did get worse. After the adrenaline faded, heat washed through my body. I woke drenched in sweat. The clock flashing 2:17 a.m. weakness pressed me into the mattress. The cabin creaked around me. For the first time since Damon left, I considered that I might have saved myself from him only to lose the fight with my own body. Morning blurred. At some point I staggered to the bathroom again, checked the incision, reapplied ointment, forced down water. When the satellite phone rang in the gray light, I could barely stand. I am on my way, Daryl said. And I am not alone. A friend is coming with me. She is a paramedic. Do not argue. Hours later, I heard his truck grinding up the snowy road. Daryl burst through the door, taller and broader than Damon, with the same stern expression I remembered from childhood. Behind him came a compact woman with a medical bag. I am Lisa Monroe, she said. Search and rescue. Let us take a look at you. Lisa checked my temperature, blood pressure, lungs. Her hands were efficient but gentle. You are on the edge, she said finally. Not septic yet, but too close for comfort. You need 4 antibiotics and monitoring. You need a hospital. I opened my mouth to protest. She met my eyes. You survived him. Do not risk dying from pride. They bundled me into Daryl's truck. Every bump on the road from the mountains to the hospital felt like a knife through my abdomen, but I was strangely calm. Damon was in custody. The money was frozen. I had done what I needed to do. Now I could let someone else be strong for a while. At the hospital, Dr. Morton appeared at the foot of my bed again, reading my chart, examining the wound. Where is your husband? She asked. Under arrest, I said. At JFK, for financial abuse and abandoning me here. Her jaw tightened. I suspected something, she murmured. His face when I explained your risks. I wish I had spoken up. She admitted me for 3 days. For antibiotics. Blood tests. A social worker visited, took notes about Damon's behavior, nodded grimly when I described the cabin, the missing phone, the changed locks. This is domestic violence, she said. Just a quieter version than most people picture. Regina arrived the next morning with a briefcase and the controlled energy of someone used to fighting on behalf of women like me. The asset freeze is complete, she said. Your husband's accounts are locked. He was arraigned this morning. His parents posted bail. Travel restrictions. Passport surrendered. He is facing felony charges. His lawyer will try to argue that this was a marital dispute, Regina continued, that he was simply leaving an unhappy marriage. But Tamara's report changes everything. His own messages planning to leave you post-surgery. The transfers. The timing. We have a strong criminal case and a very strong divorce case. 2 weeks later, when I was strong enough to sit upright for hours, we went to mediation. The courthouse conference room felt like neutral ground. Damon sat across from me in a wrinkled dress shirt, looking smaller than I remembered. His lawyer laid out their proposal. Return the $42,000, split remaining assets, vacate the apartment in 30 days. No mention of what he had done. No, I said. Damon's eyes flicked up, surprised. You do not get to pretend this was an ordinary breakup, I continued. You left me 2 days after surgery in a remote cabin with no phone, no car, no way to get help. You stole our money. You changed the locks. You are not just a man who fell in love with someone else. You are a man who tried to erase his wife because it was convenient. He flushed. You are punishing me because I wanted more, he said. Because you got boring. You stopped trying. I wanted to feel alive. Then you should have divorced me, I replied. Like an adult. Instead, you turned my medical crisis into cover. You used my resilience as an excuse to be cruel. There is nothing romantic about that. It is cowardice. Regina slid our counteroffer across the table. Full return of all stolen funds, including the earlier transfers Tamara traced. payment of my legal fees, a written, notarized affidavit admitting to financial abuse and abandonment, immediate surrender of the apartment, no contest to a permanent restraining order. If he refused, we would go to trial. Damon's lawyer asked for a moment. They stepped into the hallway. When they returned, Damon looked like someone who had finally realized the game was over. "I will sign," he muttered. One by one, he put his name on every page. Each signature felt like a nail sealing a box I would never have to open again. At the end, he looked up. "I did not mean for it to go this way," he said. "I never wanted to hurt you like that. You meant for me to suffer," I answered. "You just did not mean for me to fight back." He flinched. Then he left. The criminal case ended with a plea deal. Damon pleaded guilty to financial abuse and domestic violence through abandonment. 2 years of probation, community service, a criminal record that would follow him wherever he went. His days of working in finance were over. Jasmine, who had given investigators every message he ever sent her, walked away with a lesser charge and a scar she would carry in her own way. The divorce decree arrived in the mail 6 weeks later. 9 years of marriage reduced to a few pages, a case number, a signature from a judge who never met us. I stared at the document for a long time. I did not cry. Instead, I felt something loosen, as if a too tight band around my chest had finally been cut. I moved back into the apartment long enough to sort my things. The space felt smaller than I remembered. Damon's absence was a presence of its own. I walked through each room, deciding what to keep, what to donate, what to leave behind like shed skin. Then I packed what mattered into boxes and drove back to the cabin, the place he thought would be my prison, which I chose as my home. With part of the settlement, I renovated. New windows, reliable heat, a sturdy generator. I painted the bedroom the soft green my grandmother liked. I hung her cross-stitch by the door so I would see it every time I stepped outside. A woman who knows her worth does not measure herself by a man's opinion. I started painting again. Real painting on canvas, not just graphics on a screen. Damon used to tell me art was a hobby, not a career, something to dabble in on weekends if I had finished all my real work. Now I set up an easel on the porch and watched colors spill into shapes that made sense only to me. I sold a few pieces online. That was satisfying, but not the point. Creating was the point. Twice a week I drove into town to volunteer at a women's shelter. I helped women fill out restraining orders, open separate bank accounts, call families they had been cut off from. I sat in cramped offices and listened to stories that sounded achingly familiar. A woman named Erica, with fading bruises on her cheek, asked me how I found the courage to leave. I did not wake up brave, I told her. I woke up tired of being afraid. So I prepared. I collected proof. I found people to help me. And when the chance came, I took it. You are already fighting. Now you have to believe you deserve to win. She cried. I stayed. Sometimes survival is as simple as having someone bear witness. A year after Damon drove away in my Jeep, I hiked up to the ridge behind the cabin. My body still remembered the surgery, scar tissue pulling, muscles stretching, but it carried me. At the top, the valley spread out below. Pines, river, sky. It looked the same as the day Damon tried to turn this place into my grave. I was not the same. I thought of him in a small rental in Texas, working a job he hated, his record following him like a shadow. I did not feel sorry for him. I did not feel vengeful either. I felt distant, like remembering a story that once kept me up at night but no longer belonged to me. I thought of Jasmine starting over on the West Coast, of the apology message she sent through Regina. I read it once, then filed it away. Some things do not need answers. Not every wound needs a conversation to heal. I thought of Grandma Eloise, who wasted decades trying to fix a man who did not want to be fixed and then, late in life, built a refuge on this mountain. She left me more than property. She left me a map. What not to do, what to walk away from, what to build instead. Damon had called me a survivor like it was an insult. He was right about the word and wrong about everything else. Survival was not passively absorbing whatever someone chose to do to me. It was choosing to live anyway, and when necessary, choosing to fight back. I stood on that ridge, wind cold against my face, and breathed. I had survived the hemorrhage, the surgery, the abandonment, the fever, the courtroom. I had survived the loss of the life I thought I wanted. What remained was mine to build. When the sun began to sink, I turned and walked back down toward the cabin, toward the wood stove and the canvases and the satellite phone on the wall that now almost never rang. The snow had not yet started, but the air held the promise of it. A year ago, Damon left me here thinking this place would break me. Instead, it became where I started again. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.